Have you ever sat down at a diner table, coffee in hand, and thought, wait a second, when did breakfast stop feeling like breakfast? It used to be ritual. Warm plates steaming in front of you, the comfort of a bottomless cup, the kind of food that wrapped around you like a blanket. Breakfast meant slowing down, savoring, actually tasting the morning. But over time, the slow simmer turned into a fast shuffle. Somewhere between frozen supply trucks and corporate efficiency, the soul of breakfast started slipping out the back door. And that's what we're peeling apart today. Which chains still give you mornings worth remembering? And which ones quietly hollowed out their promise? Stick with me, because what you're about to hear may change the way you look at that stack of pancakes forever. Let's start with IHOP. The name alone used to mean indulgence. You'd pile into a booth, sunlight streaking through the windows, pancakes stacked high with butter that melted faster than you could spread it. The kind of meal your grandparents made a tradition after church, or the cure-all after a long night with friends. It wasn't just food, it was an event. But walk into IHOP today, and the cracks show fast. Pancakes that taste more like warm foam than griddle-borne batter. Sausage links with that unmistakable microwave bounce. Coffee that somehow manages to scald your tongue while still being weak. Former employees paint a telling picture. Pancake batter that once started in stainless steel bowls with real buttermilk now arrives pre-bagged, pre-portioned, and soulless. Just tear, pour, and move on. It's consistent, sure, but consistent in the same way cardboard is consistent. Predictable, flat, and forgettable. The pancakes themselves? Different. They used to carry weight, edges crisped with a satisfying snap, centers golden and hot. Now you cut into spongy discs that look cooked enough for Instagram but lack the taste to bring you back. One X-Line cook even admitted speed mattered more than doneness. Syrup will cover it. And that's the shift. Toppings as camouflage. Candy sprinkles, sauces, mountains of whipped cream. All there to distract you from what's missing underneath. It's a corporate strategy, not nostalgia. You're no longer eating breakfast. You're eating decoration. IHOP still gives the illusion of warmth, the booths, the cheery signage, the endless syrup bottles. But the magic's been traded away. The food doesn't sing anymore. It just checks the box, warm, sweet, edible. Nothing more. And when breakfast becomes a transaction instead of an experience, you know something sacred has been lost. Now let's talk Denny's. If IHOP was the sunny Sunday reward, Denny's was the lifeline. Midnight coffee, 6 a.m. pit stops on road trips, a glowing sign that promised somebody's still awake, and they'll feed you. For decades that mattered. But lately, Denny's feels less like a refuge and more like a fast food chain that just happens to sell pancakes. Sure, the menu is encyclopedic, pancakes, bacon, burgers, milkshakes, you name it. But food that looks right on a plate can fool you. One longtime diner described it perfectly. They're imitating breakfast, not making it. Behind the kitchen doors, the shortcuts are impossible to ignore. Eggs from cartons instead of shells, bacon pre-cooked and reheated, sausages vacuum-sealed, and pancakes? Flimsy, cooling before your fork even reaches for the syrup. Even the hash browns tell on them, burnt at the edges, raw in the middle. A plate that says, we hit the timer, not the sweet spot. The coffee is another story in itself. For a chain built on endless refills, you'd think the brew would matter. But servers have admitted they're told to stretch old pots during slow hours. Keep it hot, don't keep it fresh. And trust me, your tongue can taste the difference. The bigger issue? Atmosphere. Denny's used to buzz. There was always something happening. Truckers at the counter, students scribbling in notebooks, night shift workers winding down. Now it feels like a stage set where the lights are still on, but the performance ended hours ago. The food comes out quick, neat, and lifeless, just enough to keep you from complaining, never enough to make you remember. Denny's wants to be everything, a family spot, a late-night hangout, a breakfast pit stop, but in trying to do it all, they hollowed out the one thing that actually made them matter. Simple food, cooked with care. And that's a pattern you'll want to remember because we're going to see it again. Before I move on, if you're someone who still believes breakfast deserves better, hit that subscribe button for Undercover Spoon. Because the truth about your food isn't always on the surface, and trust me, what's coming up next will surprise you. Now let's step into Panera bread. Panera bread. For a while, it sold us a fantasy. Soft lighting, rustic bread baskets, people sipping lattes while working on laptops. It felt like a cafe you'd find in a European side street, except tucked between a Staples and a Target. And for breakfast? It offered something fast, yes, but with the illusion of health and care. Oatmeal with fruit, egg sandwiches that looked imperfect enough to feel real, coffee that didn't taste like it had been reheated for hours. You walked away thinking, I didn't just eat, I made a smart choice. But peel back the wrapper today, and the mask slips. Breakfast sandwiches are no longer cracked fresh in the kitchen. They're pre-assembled, pre-cooked, and kept wrapped in warming drawers until someone calls your name. Eggs that once had uneven edges, the mark of something made by hand, now arrive in bulk, reheated and rubbery by the time they hit your plate. A former Panera associate admitted, it's all about timing, not freshness. Eggs cooked in batches, sitting in trays. The rush matters more than the taste. And then there's the coffee, the very backbone of Panera's morning identity. Ask anyone who used to swear by it, and you'll hear the same story. It's not what it used to be. Sometimes weak, sometimes bitter, sometimes so clearly brewed hours ago that you wonder if anyone bothered to check the pot. Panera's big play, the Unlimited Sip Club, means people keep filling their cups, but not because the coffee is good. It's because it's endless. Even the pastries, once a bright spot, have lost their charm. Muffins crumble like boxed cake mix. Bagels that should have that chewy New York-style bite feel pale and dry. Most of it delivered frozen, thawed, and finished in-store. Looks good in the glass case. Bites like disappointment. Panera still loves the phrase, clean food. And technically, they're not wrong. No artificial dyes, no hard-to-pronounce preservatives. But clean doesn't mean cared for. Clean doesn't mean fresh. And when your bagel tastes like a memory of something better, it doesn't matter how clean the ingredient list looks on paper. And then there's Cracker Barrel. On the surface, nothing has changed. Rocking chairs line the porch, checkers boards sit unfinished on the tables, and the store inside still smells like wood polish and candy sticks. The stage is set, but when the food arrives, you feel the difference. Pancakes that collapse into softness instead of carrying that hot griddle, crackle. Bacon that used to curl at the edges, now limp and lukewarm. Hash browns cooked so unevenly you wonder if the cook ever saw the plate before it left the kitchen. Former employees have been blunt. Much of the prep has shifted to standardized mixes and prepackaged bases. Gravy comes in bags now, not stirred in skillets. Biscuit dough arrives pre-portioned, not hand-mixed in the back. One-line cook put it simply, it's not about cooking anymore, it's about moving. That efficiency may keep things uniform, but it strips away the handmade soul that made Cracker Barrel breakfast a memory worth holding on to. The biscuits still look impressive, tall, layered, but taste faint. Flour, salt, not much else. Leave them under a heat lamp for 5 minutes, and they turn dense as a hockey puck. The irony? The setting still works. The charm is still there. You could close your eyes and imagine the meal you're supposed to be eating. But when the plate in front of you is hollow, all that nostalgia turns into window dressing. You're not eating tradition. You're eating an echo of tradition. And that feeling, that uncanny sense that something is off, is what ties these chains together. It's not that they've collapsed. It's that they've shifted from food with heart to food that performs. Looks right, fills you up, checks the corporate box. But when you leave, you don't carry it with you. Now, before we dive deeper into this rabbit hole, let me plant a seed. The next few spots on this list are going to sting, because they're the kind of places you probably grab without thinking. The weekday fallback. The good enough fix. But once you see how the sausage is really made, literally, You may never look at your bagel or breakfast sandwich the same way again. And trust me, the next one, it's a name you know well. Stay with me, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to Undercover Spoon so you never miss the stories chains hope you'll ignore. Because the next stop is Einstein Brothers. Bagels. Einstein Brothers Bagels. It's not a diner, never pretended to be. But for a lot of people, it's the workday stop. Grab a bagel sandwich, a coffee, and hustle into the commute. Quick, semi-fresh, warm enough to count as breakfast. But here's the thing. What looks freshly baked isn't always what you think. Bagels used to have bite. A crust you had to tear into, chewy centers that told you they'd been boiled before hitting the oven, the way bagels are supposed to be made. That process takes time. Too much time, apparently, for a chain with hundreds of locations. So what happens now? According to former bakers, a lot of stores don't make their bagels from scratch anymore. They get them par-baked, frozen, and shipped in. All the staff does is finish them off in ovens. They come out smelling fresh, but the texture gives it away. More softness than chew, more steam than crust. A bread-shaped shortcut. And the eggs? Forget cracking a shell. Workers admit many locations rely on pre-cooked egg pucks, microwaved in batches and kept warm until someone orders. Perfectly round, neatly uniform, and utterly lifeless. Real eggs are messy. These aren't. Throw on cheese that doesn't fully melt and bacon cooked hours earlier, and you've got a sandwich that looks fine on Instagram but tastes like routine. Comfort comes not from flavor, but from repetition. You order it because it's what you always order, not because it's good. Even the coffee can't save it. The brews lean heavily on syrup flavors to hide a stale base. Carafes sit too long. Drink it black, and you'll catch it, thin, bitter, and flat. Einstein Brothers still markets warmth and fresh starts. But let's be honest, the warmth is from a heat lamp, and the fresh start is just habit. And if that sounded bad, wait until we pull Subway into the picture. Yes, Subway does breakfast. And if you've ever grabbed one of their egg flatbreads in the morning, you already know why it deserves a hard look. The eggs? They don't crack them. They don't whisk them. They don't even try. What you're biting into is a pre-cooked, frozen slab, yellow squares of egg product reheated in the same toaster that melts cheese. One former manager didn't mince words. It's not really an egg. It's a protein shape. The bread? Once it had a crisp to it when toasted. Now it often comes out limp, steamed by its own fillings, gummy instead of golden. And the bacon? Pre-cooked, flavorless, and flattened. Warm at first, hardened into a meat chip once it cools. Even the coffee, an afterthought at best, is a disappointment. One button, one spout, one cup of something that tastes like it was brewed last week. Subway breakfasts aren't made. They're assembled, designed for speed, for volume, not for satisfaction. That's the pattern again. It's not inedible. It's just soulless. And then we hit Tim Hortons. For Canadians, it's a cultural touchstone. For Americans, it's nostalgia by association. Road trips, early mornings, coffee in one hand, breakfast sandwich in the other. It was supposed to be simple, basic, comforting. But comfort doesn't survive when corners get cut. The breakfast sandwiches, once imperfect in a way that felt human, gooey cheese dripping over the side, eggs folded with uneven edges, now feel manufactured. The biscuit? Dry before you even bite. The egg? More like a thin, rubbery sheet pulled from a freezer. Former workers confirmed it. Eggs are pre-cooked, frozen, and microwaved in batches. If it looked warm, we served it. Didn't matter how it tasted. The coffee, once its saving grace, has lost ground too. Customers complain of weak pours, burnt notes, or flavors that taste suspiciously artificial. Employees admit some stores stretch a pot for hours, even when the taste dies after 30 minutes. And the donuts? Shipped frozen, finished in store, glazed thin, centers dry. You eat them out of habit, not desire. Tim Hortons still talks like it's the dependable morning choice, but what lands on your tray feels like a shadow of what it used to be. Not broken, not offensive, just forgettable. And forgettable is almost worse. So where does that leave us? Not every chain has slipped. Some still understand that breakfast isn't just fuel, it's a memory, a pause, a plate worth waiting for. And the next stop on this list? That's where things finally turn around. Because believe it or not, there are places still doing it right. And one of them might be hiding in plain sight. First Watch. It doesn't get the spotlight of the bigger chains. You don't see it glowing at midnight or plastered across highways. But maybe that's the secret. First Watch doesn't try to be everything to everyone. It just tries to make breakfast that feels real. No gimmicks, no syrup-drenched distractions, just coffee that tastes like coffee, eggs that taste like eggs, and plates that remind you why breakfast mattered in the first place. Former staff describe kitchens built around Fresh First. Most of the prep happens in-house. Vegetables actually chopped that morning. Eggs cracked when you order, not scooped from a carton. Toast that's actually toasted, not warmed in a bag. And the difference shows up in the details. The potatoes come out crisp, uneven in the best way, the kind of browning you only get from an actual griddle flip, not a fryer timer. The pancakes, golden, thick, and flavorful enough that you might eat the first few bites plain, just to appreciate the batter before the syrup ever touches it. Customers notice too. One put it best. Nothing on the plate is trying too hard. It just tastes the way you hoped it would. The menu itself feels alive. Seasonal specials that change. Avocado toast with texture instead of mush. Bowls layered with roasted veggies and herbs that actually taste fresh. It's not flashy, it's deliberate. Even the coffee plays its role. Strong, dark, never burnt. Poured into mugs thick enough to keep the heat while you sit, linger, and sip. And here's the real kicker. No one's rushing you out the door. The pace is yours. In a world obsessed with speed, that pause is revolutionary. It's not cheap, and it's not fast. But maybe that's exactly the point. Now, if First Watch proves breakfast can still be done right, the original Pancake House proves that sometimes the old ways are still the best. Walk in, and you know immediately. Butter, batter, and a kitchen that doesn't cut corners. It's not corporate flash. It's craft. The pancakes here carry weight, crisp edges, warm centers, and a flavor that tells you someone actually whisked something in a bowl that morning. No shortcuts, no disguises, just food that speaks for itself. And it's not just the pancakes. The bacon is thick, cooked to order. The eggs come from shells, not cartons. Even the whipped cream tastes like it was made in the back, not squirted from a can. Ask regulars, and they'll tell you, the Dutch baby is the crown jewel. A giant puffed pancake, golden and dusted with sugar and lemon. It takes time. They warn you up front. But when it arrives, you understand why. It's not perfect. It's human. And that's exactly what makes it unforgettable. Even the coffee, often an afterthought at most places, earns its place. Not the star, but a steady hand. Strong enough to cut through syrup. Smooth enough to sip slow. Poured into heavy ceramic mugs you don't want to give back. And that's the point. None of it is flashy. None of it feels engineered. It just feels like breakfast used to feel. Honest, warm, worth remembering. Because here's the bigger truth. When chains lean on speed, shortcuts, and decoration, breakfast becomes disposable. You eat it, you forget it, you move on. But when someone slows down long enough to actually care, the food lingers. It stays with you. Not just in your stomach, but in your memory. That's the difference between a transaction and a tradition. Between a plate that fills you and a plate that feeds you. So maybe the question isn't just where should you eat breakfast? Maybe it's what do you want breakfast to mean? If this breakdown made you rethink your morning routine or brought back a memory of how breakfast used to taste, drop a like, share your story in the comments, and subscribe to Undercover Spoon. Because the smallest meals often reveal the biggest truths. And remember, breakfast isn't just about starting your day. It's about deciding how much of yourself you're willing to trade for convenience. Choose carefully,